All right, earlier today, the CEOs of NPR, PBS appeared before lawmakers on the newly formed DOGE subcommittee, hoping to shore up more of your hard-earned tax dollars. Needless to say, there was plenty of fireworks. Take a look.
Ms. Maher, who is Uri Berliner?
Mr. Berliner is a former senior editor,
That's all?
a former senior business editor for NPR.
How long do you work at NPR?
I believe he was there just over 25 years.
25 years? Award-winning journalist? Did he win any awards?
Our time did not
Peabody
overlap.
Award? That's pretty important, isn't it?
That is,
So
absolutely.
pretty distinguished journalist, right?
Certainly.
And he wrote a long story about what you do at NPR. Is NPR biased?
Congressman, I have never seen any instance of political bias determining editorial decisions, no.
Well, Mr. Berliner, in his story last year, wrote, in the D.C. area, editorial positions at NPR, he said he found 87 registered Democrats, 0 Republicans. Is that accurate?
We do not track the numbers or the voter registration, but I find that
Was award-winning journalist who worked 25 years at NPR, Mr. Berliner, was he lying when he wrote that?
I am not presuming such. I just we don't track that information about our journalists.
87 to 0, and you're not biased.
I think that is concerning if those numbers are accurate.
It's concerning. I mean, it wasn't 44-43. It wasn't 60-27. It wasn't 70-17. It wasn't even 80-7. It was 87 Democrats, 0 Republicans, and you say NPR is not biased. How about the big stories over the last few years? According to Mr. Berliner, again, he wrote on the Trump-Russia story, he wrote, at NPR, we hitched our wagon to Trump's most visible antagonist, Representative Adam Schiff. He said they interviewed him 25 times. Is that accurate?
I was not there at the time, but those numbers sound accurate. Yes.
Those sound accurate. But then he said when the Mueller report came out and Robert Mueller said he found no evidence of collusion, he said Russiagate faded from our programming. Is that accurate?
Again, I was not there at the time. I couldn't say.
You couldn't say?
I was not at NPR at the time.
You didn't prepare for that? You knew we were going to ask you about this guy, didn't you? It's come up like 6,000 times already in the hearing.
I just couldn't say whether it faded from our coverage, sir.
How about this story? October 2020, the New York Post had the Hunter Biden laptop story, and one of those editors, I guess one of those 87 Democrat editors, said this: we don't want to waste our time on stories that are not really stories. We don't want to waste the listeners' and readers' times on stories that are just pure distractions. Was that a pure distraction story?
Our current editorial leadership believes that that was a mistake, as do I.
Yeah, the whole country knows that was a mistake. Definitely impacted the election, or I think it certainly impacted the election. How about the COVID origin story? That's a pretty big story too, right? Mr. Berliner said, we became fervent members of the team Natural Origin, even declaring that the lab leak was debunked by scientists. Turns out, though, the lab leak is what most people think actually caused the COVID virus.
Sorry, is there a question there?
There is. You guys were 0 for 3 on the three of the biggest stories in the last 5 years. You guys were 0 for 3, and yet you maintain that NPR is not biased?
Congressman, I do not believe we are politically biased. No, we are a nonpartisan organization.
Nonpartisan organization. What's happening to your listeners over the last 5 years? Went up, down, or stayed the same?
It has gone up and down and is now going back up.
Well, I thought 5 years ago it was at 60 million. And you said in your opening statement, I think, 43 million.
That's correct.
So 43 million now, and it was at 60 million 5 years ago. I can do some math. That looks like it went down.
And is now going back up.
It's now going back up?
Yes, it is.
How much has it went back up?
It's gone up a couple of millions over the past years.
So you went from 60 million to 41 million. Now you're back up to 43 million.
In a year's time, I'm very proud of that growth, sir.
Okay, you're proud of that growth. Okay.
Ms. Maher, I want to start with you. Just generally, would you say you generally agree or disagree with the following statement? The history of all hitherto existing society is the history of class struggles?
I would not say I agree with that, sir.
You're not. That's good to hear. It's interesting because a lot of your thinking, as expressed by your public statements, is deeply infused with economic and cultural Marxism. Do you believe that America is addicted to white supremacy?
I believe that I tweeted that, and as I've said earlier, I believe much of my thinking has evolved over the last half decade.
It has evolved. Why did you tweet that?
I don't recall the exact context, sir, so I wouldn't be able to say.
Okay. Do you believe that America believes in black plunder and white democracy?
I don't believe that, sir.
You
Don't know where
tweeted
statement
that in
comes from.
reference to a book you were reading at the time, apparently, The Case for Reparations.
I don't think I've ever read that book, sir.
You tweeted about it. You said you took a day off to fully read The Case for Reparations. You put that on Twitter in January of 2020.
Apologies, I don't recall that I did.
Okay.
I'd no doubt that your tweet there is correct, but I don't recall that.
Okay. Do you believe that white people inherently feel superior to other races?
I do not.
You don't. You tweeted something to that effect. You said, I grew up feeling superior. Ha, how white of me. Why did you tweet that?
I think I was probably reflecting on what it was to grow up in an environment where I had lots of advantages.
It sounds like you're saying that white people feel superior.
I don't believe that anybody feels that way, sir. I was just reflecting on my own experiences.
Do you think that white people should pay reparations?
I've never said that, sir.
Yes, you did. You said it in January of 2020. You tweeted, yes, the North, yes, all of us, yes, America, yes, our original collective sin and unpaid debt, yes, reparations, yes, on this day.
I don't believe that was a reference to fiscal reparations, sir.
What kind of reparations was it a reference to?
I think it was just a reference to the idea that we all owe much to the people who came before us.
That's a bizarre way to frame what you tweeted. Okay, how much reparations have you personally paid?
Sir, I don't believe that I've ever paid reparations.
Okay, it's just for everybody else.
I'm not asking anyone
Seems
to pay
to be what you're
reparations, sir.
suggesting. Do you believe that looting is morally wrong?
I believe that looting is illegal, and I refer to it as counterproductive. I think it should be prosecuted.
Do you believe
to the
it's
full extent of the
morally
law.
wrong, though?
Of course.
Of course. Then why did you refer to it as counterproductive? It's a very different way to describe it.
It is both morally wrong and counterproductive, as well as being
You
illegal.
tweeted, it's hard to be mad about protests in reference to the BLM protests, not prioritizing the private property of a system of oppression. You didn't condemn the looting. You said that it was counterproductive. NPR also promoted a book called In Defense of Looting. Do you think that that's an appropriate use of taxpayer dollars?
I'm unfamiliar with that book, sir, and I don't believe that was at my
You
time at
tweeted
NPR.
that you read that book, but
I don't believe that I did read that book, sir.
do you think that a few years ago NPR educated America about, quote, the whole community of genderqueer dinosaur enthusiasts? Do you think that that's an appropriate use of tax dollars?
I was not at NPR at the time, sir.
That's not the question, though. Do you think that that's an appropriate use of our tax dollars?
I think our tax dollars that we use are to be able to provide a wide range of
So I'll
perspectives.
take that as a yes. You do believe that that's appropriate. Your health advisor at NPR also stated in an interview that, quote, fear of fatness is more harmful than actual fat. Would you like to explain how fear of fatness is more harmful than actual fat? That's an editorial at NPR.
I am not familiar with the editorial, and I don't believe that was published during my time here.
It's called Diet Culture is Everywhere. Here's how to fight it. Do you think that that's an appropriate use of taxpayer dollars?
I think any reporting on health is an appropriate use of
You've
taxpayer
spent-
dollars, yes.
And you think that editorializing that fat is not unhealthy is appropriate?
I don't know what that article is, sir, and I'm not familiar with it, so I
This
couldn't
is
say.
fake news. Do you think that basic accommodations like doorways or seat belts represent, quote, latent fat phobia?
I don't have an opinion.
It's
on that,
also
sir.
from NPR. Do you think civility is racist?
No, sir.
No. Your outlet ran an article entitled, quote, when civility is used as a cudgel against people of color. That was on All Things Considered. Would you like to explain?
I'm not on the editorial side, sir. I'm not familiar with that story.
You talk about how NPR is news. This is editorialization, and I'll read it. For many people of color in the United States, civility isn't so much social lubricant as it is a vehicle for containing them, preventing social mobility, and preserving the status quo. This is garbage. I'll spend all of my time doing everything I can to ensure you guys never get another dollar of taxpayer funding. This is complete garbage. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You believe your reporters are fair? You said they're fair and they're working at it.
I believe that they work to be every day, sir.
They're non-biased. And yet you have the voter registration issue. I mean, we're all human beings. We're all going to see through the world through a certain lens. And are you aware of any Republicans, any registered Republicans in your newsroom?
I couldn't say registered, but I know we have conservatives in our newsroom, yes.
Okay, so the recent registration, when it was looked at, 87 87 Democrats and 0 Republicans registered.
I found that very concerning.
Yeah,
sir.
I would. Not even 40 to 30 or 50 to 20. 87 to 0.
I don't even know how to react to that. So we have to bring in Fox News contributor, senior writer, by the way, for the Washington Examiner, Joe Concha. I'll let you respond to that because I have, you know, 1 word, 2 words, depending on how you want to say it. Check and mate. Checkmate.
Yeah, I feel like asking a question or two, which is, how did somebody not pull a fire alarm or call 911? Because I've never seen such a blowout on Capitol Hill like that before. I mean, it was just generally hilarious, Sean, to hear Catherine Mayer say her past statements and social media posts, some of which that were just read there during that montage, had no bearing whatsoever on NPR's editorial decisions. I mean, go listen to NPR for 3 minutes. Trust me, you'll have a decidedly different opinion. And if any of the folks from Doge are watching this and we're watching today, Elon, if you're looking for some waste that could be really easy to cut, look no further than, you know, MSNPR or MSPBS. And as you just showed, Sean, its CEO, Catherine Maher, it was a human Chernobyl on Capitol Hill today. I mean, the fact that during the Biden years, it really was. You almost felt sorry for her, almost. But during the Biden years, NPR, here's one example. They stopped its tradition, 50-year tradition, of reading the Declaration of Independence on Independence Day. That's nice, right? Instead, they decided that having a discussion on how Thomas Jefferson and the Declaration of Independence were actually racist, yeah, they thought that was a better idea. I mean, Mayer alone, she called President Trump a racist, a sociopath during the 2020 election, all while sporting a Biden for president hat. It's on social media. You could go see it. So at this point, if she keeps this up, if the CEO of PBS keeps this up, they'll both be co-hosting The View by next week. And the big question here in the end, why should even one American taxpayer dollar be given to PBS or NPR? Because according to Pew Research, the audiences at NPR and PBS are among the most liberal in America. Nearly 3/4, for example, of NPR's and PBS's audience describe themselves as consistently liberal. Almost no conservatives watch. So, you know, what's the old slogan here? Fair and balanced doesn't exist there. So I say make PBS and NPR be solvent on their own, just like every other news outlet. They've been around, at least NPR has, for 55 years. The government does not need to hold their hand and give them money anymore.
So the whole community of genderqueer dinosaur enthusiasts, fear of fatness is more harmful than actual fat. I think my favorite answer, though, was she said that she thinks her thinking has evolved over the last half decade. That means in the last 5 years. Okay. That means the person that believed America's addicted to white supremacy, the person that believed that America believes in black plunder and white democracy, the case for reparations, which she put out there, and that white people inherently feel superior to other races. So we're supposed to believe that her thinking has evolved in the last 5 years. And we're supposed to believe that. Sounds to me like an election year conversion, like this is I want to stay on my job and have the taxpayers fund my great way of life, and I'll say anything to save my job. You get the last word.
Yeah, in 2020, she believed that seatbelts and doorways were a part of fat phobia. But then in the last 5 years, that whole thought process went away. All I know is Democrats, when they flip-flop to try to save their jobs or just try to conform to what the public wants to hear, that's called evolving. For everybody else, that's called flip-flopping and phoniness. In the end, elections have consequences. And the fact that Donald Trump and J.D. Vance are in office, and Elon Musk, for that matter, and what he's doing at Doge, it's a very good bet that the taxpayer spigot is about to end at NPR and PBS, and it can't happen soon enough, Sean.
Catherine Maher, you might want to start packing up your office right about now.
Yeah.
Thank you, Joe Concha.